everybody, to a special bonus episode of Hot Takes with Billy Biz. This is for the Patreon listeners. Just kidding. I don't have one of those. I don't want your money. Your attention is good enough for me. I'm trying out a microphone tonight, and I figure, why just do a bunch of boring tests when I can give you guys some extra content here? Because I'm just that damn nice. So I asked on Twitter if you guys had any questions, if you wanted to ask me anything. So I'm just going to pull up the Twitter thread here, and I'm just going to go through them. I have no idea how long this is going to be. This could either be 10 minutes or 2 hours, but I'm just going to go through them. This is from Langley, at Langley M. Neely, who... is a really good dude. He said, what's your opinion on ignoring the continuity of certain films in a franchise because films were bad and rebooting without an in-story reason, like Halloween or the Never Happened Blomkamp's Alien sequel? Does it cheapen the veracity or weight of all the films in a franchise if you can just cheat out of what came before? I'm kind of mixed on this one, to be honest with you. I would say for most of the time, I am a person that, look, canon is canon. Things happen in these franchises. Sometimes we're not a fan of them, but it all counts. Sometimes bad things happen in life. You can't just cherry pick the things that you want. And nothing really annoys me more than people who kind of just cherry pick the things they like and not take in the full experience. And sometimes that means there's parts to just to life in general that you just can't ignore. And I know that that's a little bit deeper of an answer than probably the question required, but that's kind of my philosophy when it comes to some of these franchises, like, you know, you said Alien, and that sequel that never came about, that was going to just completely ignore the Alien movies that it didn't want to. But in a way, even though maybe they weren't the greatest movies or maybe people didn't like them, like, there was a lot of work that went into Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection. And I think to just pretend like it never happened is a disservice to the people that worked on it and also to the things that did work in it. I've said it on a lot of episodes that I don't think any movie, barring maybe a couple of exceptions, is perfect. And I don't think any movie is, on the opposite side of that coin, barring a few exceptions, 100% awful. So I don't usually like the idea of breaking continuity. Now, with all of that being said, one of my favorite movies of this year is the Halloween reboot, or re-sequel? How do you say that? Rebooted sequel, I guess. I don't know. The 2018 Halloween, I really, really loved that movie. I also, to be 100% fair, never saw any of the sequels. I only saw the original Halloween. So I loved this movie. It made me want to go back and watch the other movies that I missed just because I wanted more of the character. But in general, I think, I'd rather you just reboot completely and start your own thing, but don't do these quasi sequels to movies. That's guys, that's how we got Superman Returns, and that movie's a mess. Langley also jokingly asked, why is Home Improvement the greatest sitcom in history? Because he knows that Home Improvement is one of my favorite sitcoms. I don't always agree with what Tim Allen as a person says, but that will just always be one of my favorite shows. And why is it the greatest? Because if you go back and watch, especially some of those early ones, I feel like that's one of the most realistic TV families. Like, they truly act like a family in that show. And sure, you can point to like Roseanne and stuff as the first like working class family on TV, but that felt a little forced to me. That was like a family, or maybe that was just a family that I didn't understand. But Home Improvement is, that to me is a real family. And Al and Tim, they're just so funny together. It's a great show. I love it. Uh, oh, jeez. Ryan O'Toole, why are you my number one fan? I'm not. Next question. Uh, that kid. That kid's gonna send me to an early grave. Laura. Hey, Laura at Laura Phenomenon. Who? Oh, wow. This is actually a deep question. Who would you most like to impress with your work and why? Well, this is gonna maybe on the surface sound like a kind of a d bag answer, um, but I would have to say the person I most want to impress with anything that I do is myself. And I say that because there's nobody that is a harsher critic of me than me. Uh, every time that I do something, there's a million reasons why I feel like I should never put it out in the universe because it's dumb or it's that wasn't funny or you can't do this. A lot of self doubt. So there are times when I do put something out or when I do finish a project where I'm like, you know what, just stepping outside of myself for a minute, that's pretty cool. I actually like that a lot. It doesn't happen all the time. That's just kind of my nature. I don't S my own D in that sense, but yeah, if I can write something, if I can record something, if I can make something where I can step outside of myself and say, "Wow, that's actually pretty cool," um, then I know that it's something special. So yeah, there's that. Devin, at Devin Colson, do you remember the first movie you watched when you were little? I have fleeting memories and more like it's strange. It's almost like I can see myself as like a 3 year old, like an out of body experience for just a fleeting moment. I don't have a ton of memories, but what I do remember is watching a VHS copy of Cinderella a lot, and also the '66 Batman movie. Um, this was I was 3 years old when Tim Burton's Batman was in theaters, and Batmania was just all over the place. And I remember they must have re-released that '60s Batman movie on VHS because I can recall the cover of the tape. I can recall just watching it endlessly on loop. So that's probably one of my first memories that I have actually is that old '60s Batman movie, which I haven't watched in a while. I watched it a couple of years ago, and I guess just as an adult, I just can't believe how funny that '60s Batman show and movie really were. Like everything that went completely over my head as a kid. Now I'm just like, wow, that is absolutely genius. Thanks, Devin. All right, I'm gonna try my best with this question because it's very it's very dense. This comes from Jonathan Peck at JPEC1098. What movie do you think gets unfairly undervalued that should be revised based on the accomplishments of the movie itself, and it doesn't have to be a great movie? Okay. He says, for me, it's King Kong 2005. Granted, the movie's long, but I respect the ambition, the passion, and the filmmaking. I'm just going to say, you know, if this question is, I'm maybe this isn't your question, so I apologize if I'm kind of taking this and turning it into a direction you weren't expecting. I get upset with movies that are lazy and that don't try and they just throw some crap on the screen because that's what they want you to absorb to get your money, and it doesn't mean anything. And then they're like that makes me more upset. A mediocre movie that's there just to sell a product makes me more upset than a really bad movie that at least swung for the fences. So if anything, I always say I truly have tried at least a handful of times to give Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice a try. And I just, there's so many problems with that story. There's so many problems with the concept. But damn it, if Zack Snyder did not just swing for the fences on that one and really put himself out there, it really put out, you watch that movie and it's undeniably that's the movie that he wanted to make. And even though it does not connect with me, I feel the passion in it. And I feel like the conviction in it, and it doesn't feel slapped together, which for a superhero franchise movie is very difficult these days. So I guess in that sense, Batman v Superman is a movie that I don't think is very good, but I respect the hell out of the passion and the ambition that Zack Snyder had while making it. So hopefully that answers your question in one way or another. Curious George at SReekUMar625. I don't know how I'm supposed to read that, but Curious George, that's much easier. If you could only watch one director's filmography for the rest of your life, who would it be? This one's tough for me because I don't really, I'm not a fan of actors and I'm not a fan of directors. There are directors that I love that have really terrible, like some of the worst movies ever made come from a director who also has, one of my favorite movies. Like, look at Ron Howard. Apollo 13 is it is my favorite movie of all time. I think that The Dilemma is, a big fat fart. And I have no idea how the same director does both. So if I had to watch one director's filmography, oh man, I don't know. Maybe Spielberg, because 3 out of 5 times his movies are not just good, they're great, if not classic. Plus, there's just a lot of them. At least I would get a lot of variety out of them. So I would probably go Steven Spielberg. I know that's probably like the cheap answer for that, but there you go. Let's see. Oh, this is an interesting one. Oliver Gomez at Zaku1138 says, if you could have any character from any movie do a role from any other movie, who would it be? For example, the Joker from The Dark Knight as Hannibal Lecter, or Lando as Morpheus in The Matrix? That is a really interesting question. I really, I like that question a lot. So now I'm going to think about it. I don't want to give a jokey answer, but the first thing that popped into my mind, and I have no idea why, it's like, what if, like, my favorite Will Smith character is Jay from Men in Black. It's just like, what if Jay had to go into Will Smith's other crappy movies and be like, what if Jay from Men in Black was in 7 Pounds or After Earth? Instead of that, or Concussion. I just really like the idea of like characters having to do the same actors' serious roles. Like, what if like Lloyd or Harry from Dumb and Dumber had to do like the Truman Show? I think that would be so funny. So yeah, I don't have like a great answer, like off the top of my head answer for that, but that's a really cool question. I kind of think Oliver, I might steal that as a movie fights question for Screen Junkies. Maybe. Okay. Eric says, he's at Enigma461. Tell us how you really feel about Army Hammer, JK. Army Hammer is a wiener, and he really, really pissed me off. He hit a chord that I was not expecting with his whole Stan Lee thing. If you really want to know about it or see how I feel about it, you can watch the SJU episode. I think the title is something like "Does Star Wars Need George Lucas?" It's towards the middle-ish, end-ish of that episode. Yeah, just really pissed me off. But then he goes on to ask, seriously though, is there a movie or TV show that people would be surprised that you like or love? I don't know because I don't know what people expect from me at this point. I don't know if I've talked about it on the air or anywhere else, but I guess you could say like I'm 100% addicted. Will move my schedule around to watch Jersey Shore. I love it. I love the characters slash people slash characters. I love all of it. I love Jersey Shore, and I also love like the sister show Floribama Shore. So I guess people would not expect that, but maybe they would. I have no idea. I almost feel like I should just write out a laundry list of my favorite things, and then you guys tell me what you do or don't find surprising. Let's see here. Nick Bartlett at Nick James 164. Why wasn't Ray Liotta nominated for an Oscar for Goodfellas, but everyone else in the cast was? Nick, you ask that as if I had something to do with it. I was not on the nominating committee. I don't know why. I thought Ray Liotta was great. In fact, I think that's kind of sadly the peak Liotta. I don't know if, was he in Karina? I feel like that might have been my first taste of the Liotta. You know, just got one little bump of Liotta there. But I don't think you get better than Goodfellas, at least for Ray Liotta. I feel like there are two different types of people in this world. There are people that think that Goodfellas is the masterpiece and Casino is really good, but just not there. And then there are people who think that Casino is the masterpiece and Goodfellas is really good, just not quite to Casino level. I happen to be the latter. For me, I personally connect a lot more to Casino than I do Goodfellas. I think Goodfellas is please, I'm not taking anything away from Goodfellas. I have no criticisms. Oh, they should have done this or they shouldn't have done that. Goodfellas is genius. But for me, Casino, I think, is a little bit more emotionally grounded. I feel like with what's his name? Sam? Robert De Niro. Basically, with Robert De Niro's character, I feel like I could just relate a little bit more to the guy who had it all and just watching it all slip away because of poor choices. I think that's just, for me, a little bit stronger of a through line. So I know that has nothing to do with your question, but I honestly can't answer your question. I have no idea why everyone else was nominated but him. Everyone in that cast should have been nominated. They were all great. So I don't know. Maybe he pissed someone off or... I truly don't know. I don't know. But I don't think he's ever really bounced quite back. Unless Ray Liotta is doing something awesome right now and I'm just not aware of it. But I haven't seen him in anything recently that's not like a Redbox rental. Okay. Josh asks, best Hollywood Chris. I'm going to assume you're talking about one of the four: Hemsworth, Pine, Evans, Pratt. As a lot of you probably know, because I feel like I brought it up a lot, I used to work for a traveling Comic-Con company that some of the Chris's even attended. I've only personally met Chris Hemsworth. In fact, I'm looking right now at my desk at a picture of me with Chris Hemsworth. He was very, very sweet, very tired. I think this was around the time... At this point in time, they must have just been doing reshoots or wrapping up Thor Ragnarok, and he was probably very heavily doing Infinity War and Part 4 of Avengers. So he was definitely tired, but him and Tom Hiddleston, I got to have a really cool moment with both of them backstage, and they're just down-to-earth, great people. So best Hollywood Chris for me is Hemsworth, just because I have a memory attached to it, but you got to give it up for Chris Evans. I think he takes the part of Captain America seriously in the fact that everything that he does and says on Twitter and in just his personal life, he kind of lives up to the ideals of Captain America, which is very admirable. Playing these superhero roles, you kind of take on this responsibility whether you want to or not. People kind of look up to you, especially kids. And I feel like Chris Evans takes it very seriously. Henry Cavill does too. Henry Cavill is such a gentleman. That just needs to be said. Pratt, I don't know why there seems to be this kind of backlash against him. Everyone loved him, and then as soon as he gained some notoriety outside of Parks and Rec, people kind of started to turn on him a little bit. Part of me honestly thinks a little bit of it is because of what Star-Lord did in Infinity War, which is so dumb. But I think Chris Pratt's great, and I love that he is very strong in his faith and isn't afraid to display his faith without being pushy about it. I think that's a great example for everyone, really. And Chris Pine, I know nothing about Chris Pine. I think he was fantastic in the Star Trek movies. Never saw his Jack Ryan movie. Wonder Woman, he was fine. He was adequate. I think he's probably like the least memorable Chris, but still, still a good Chris. Did I hit them all? Did I hit all four? I hope so. Yeah, but for me, best Hollywood Chris Hemsworth. Yeah. Neil Varma at Neil Varminator asks, what's your favorite movie set in Missouri? That is oddly specific, and the only thing that pops into my mind is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, because it says Missouri right up top, and I love Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I think I like it more than Volume 1. It's one of my favorite Marvel movies ever, which I guess that's a hot take. Maybe I should write that down, that I think Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is better than Volume 1, and do an episode about that. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Jeff at JRivers1984 asks, sorry, I don't have any water here. I might have to cut that part out. I feel like I'm swallowing a lot. Which Marvel team would you join between the X-Men, Avengers, Fantastic Four, or the Champions, and why? I don't know who the Champions are, so process of elimination, they are out. So Fantastic Four, X-Men, or Avengers? I'm going to go Fantastic Four. I love the Fantastic Four. I really do. In fact, one of my episodes that I have on my list that it's not scheduled yet, I don't have anyone to do it with yet, but I really love the 2005 Fantastic Four movie. I don't know how else you could do that any better, because Fantastic Four is different than any other group or faction in comics. I love that they have a family dynamic, whereas X-Men, they're still persecuted, which is so strange to me. That's why the X-Men in concept is fantastic, but in execution within the larger Marvel universe, it never really made sense to me why someone would be so afraid of someone who, can change the weather like Storm, and yet there's a thunder god, Thor, and he's just perfectly accepted. I don't understand why mutants are scary, but anyone else with superhuman powers, totally fine. And then in the Avengers, they always have a high turnover rate. So I'm gonna go with Fantastic Four, because that's an actual family, and I really like that concept of the family. So Fantastic Four for me. This is super random and this question, and I feel like it's going to be disappointing, so I apologize. Dragon Reborn says, what's your thoughts on Maverick with Mel Gibson, Jodie Foster, and James Garner? Never seen it. Never had any desire to see it. Probably will never see it. Especially, I'm not a Mel Gibson fan. Especially not anymore. So my thoughts on that are, I guess it's something that exists. The Devastator asks, do you think the Avengers 4 title is going to be All That in a Bag of Chips? Wow, I've not heard that in a really long time. All That in a Bag of Chips, like Feige and the Russo brothers keep claiming, or will we question what all the build-up for what it turns out to be just a good title that could have been revealed months ago? Honestly, I think it's going to be the latter. And the reason it's going to be the latter is because everything that we do now is so overhyped that there's just no way that it's not going to be disappointing. As you can hear me lean back in my chair, like, let me tell you a story, kids. There's no way that it's not going to be disappointing because we overhype everything. And I get it. Like, look, to a certain extent, I feel like, I produce a show. That's part of the quote unquote problem where we talk about these things so much with so little, quote unquote evidence that there's nothing left to do but speculate and speculate, and then you get formed in your head what something should be rather than what something is. So I feel like whatever the title is, A, is probably going to be a letdown from whatever you had in your head what it should be, and B, it's probably not that big of a deal anyway. I don't think it's going to be anything like life changing. I don't think it's also going to be something like crazy, like, you know, House of M. I don't think it's going to be some like, whoa, I can't believe they're fitting that story arc into it. It's probably just going to be, if I were them, I would have just stuck with part two. I guess I still don't understand that decision after seeing Infinity War. Why not just lean into the fact that was part one of two? I would actually love it if they just were like, hey, it was always going to be part two. We just didn't want to give away kind of that the first movie was going to be one half of a whole, so we changed it. So yeah, will you be disappointed? Most likely, yes. Sorry to say, that's just kind of the way it goes. Scrolling through here. Okay, this is there are two questions here. Actually, I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to come back to that one. I want to end on that one because I really like it. Alan Cazares says at Cazares15, do you have any interesting stories about working at Comic-Cons? Alan, I could do a whole book, a whole podcast series, a whole movie. I could do so many things about my time working the Comic-Con circuit. I look back, I was just talking to a friend of mine who also worked there. I don't keep in touch with a lot of the people, but I keep in touch with a couple of them. And I was talking to her, and I was like, I was thinking, when Stan Lee passed away, I was thinking about some of the old days and the old times and just some of the memories, and just think what a weird 3-year period of my life that was, where I feel like I just ran away and joined the circus. It's hard to talk about sometimes because I do miss it, and yet I don't miss it at all. I have such bittersweet feelings about it. I used to be such a fan of Comic-Cons, and now I just really don't like them. I don't want to go back to them. And yet, I do have a lot of fond memories, but I also was kind of on the other side of it. I met some really great people, that unfortunately a lot of you won't be able to meet or just would never run into in your lifetime. A lot of celebrity handlers that were great. Juliet, I used to love Juliet. She handles Michael Rooker. Somehow she's able to keep that kind of schedule. I don't know how to do it. And just, being able to meet people from, that I thought were heroes of mine, and then getting to know them as people, and in some instances being able to call them a friend, like Lou Ferrigno, Incredible Hulk. I love the guy, and I got to really spend some quality time with him over the years. And in fact, there was one time we were in St. Louis, and we were at a early premiere for Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and Lou was there, and we just get this warning that a tornado's coming. And we look out the window, and that tornado's not coming. It's there, and it's in the middle of the street. And people are freaking out, and me just being kind of the stupid person that I am, I'm just like, I want to see going close to the window. Like, I never get tornadoes out in California. But Lou was so shaken up by it. And it was just this sight of, this guy who my whole life, the Incredible Hulk, he's a big, strong guy and just terrified of this tornado. He's like, I can do the earthquakes in California, but I cannot do the tornadoes. Oh no. It just like, it's going to be all right, Lou. It's going to be all right. It's already passed. I think we're safe here. So getting to say that I helped calm down the Incredible Hulk is a life achievement, achievement unlocked there. I also got to become friends with Jason David Frank, who many of you probably know as the Green Mighty Morphin Power Ranger, the Green Ranger / White Ranger. Um, that's an interesting story for maybe another time, but we didn't start off on the best foot. We started off not really liking each other. And by the end, I was privileged to call him a close friend. He's a really sweet guy. He's very smart about social media and just like Stan Lee, he really gives a crap about his fans. So I have nothing but respect for the guy. I got to meet a lot of people. Norman Reedus. I have some funny stories about Norman, and maybe another time, maybe another podcast. Honestly, it could be a whole nother podcast just telling stories, but maybe another time I'll whip out a couple. But it also is kind of cool, every now and then, especially on SJU when it's applicable to whatever we're talking about to bust out one of my stories. Uh, Very interesting time in my life that I'm very grateful for. Okay, let me circle back to the one that I said I wanted to end on. This is from Mark Hudson at Beef's Corn. Cool name. How did you? He has two questions. The first one is, how did you break into the industry? This one is interesting. I'd always been told my whole life to get into the entertainment business that there's no set path. You kind of make your own path. There's no test you can take and then you pass the bar of entertainment. You just kind of do it. For me, I went to Cal State Fullerton College. And I did an internship at what was then the TV Guide Network. And honestly, most people were doing their internships for 2 or 3 days a week. I had decided very early on that I was going to get my class schedule to a point where I only had my internship left to graduate so that I could spend all my time there. So I was at my internship, 5 days a week, like I was a full-time employee there. And it got to the point where, after my internship ended, a couple months later, they actually needed someone to PA. And a PA for that department was kind of like a full-time job. That's where I always talk about like logging tapes for Survivor. At that time, TV Guide Network was the official after show of Survivor, and they were the official preview show of Survivor. So we would always, they would always send a crew out. I never got to go on one of these, by the way. I was kind of bummed, but they would always send, a crew out and do a whole Survivor preview from whatever island they were on for that season. So I always got to know where the island was going to be and who all the contestants were going to be long before the show ever aired. But my job was to get those tapes back and then log that footage. And man, that is such a long, boring chore. Because what you have to do is basically, you get video footage of like a leaf, and you have to put like leaf moves in the wind and then put the time code. Like you have to be that specific because what the editors are going to do is they're going to put, they're going to look for they're going to look for B-roll based on your notes of time codes. So you have to be very specific. And whenever you get interviews too, you have to transcribe them word for word so that when the producer would go to write that segment of the show, they didn't have to. They could literally just pull the sentences right out from a transcription log that you had already done with the times on it. So it was a lot of tedious work, and I did that for a really long time. I want to say it was almost 2 years, which is not a long time, but when you're doing that, it's a really long time. Um, and then a position for associate producer, which still had a little bit of the not fun work, but then you got to write some of the segments for the shows. That became open, and I just went into my boss's office and asked for it, and she said no. So I worked a couple more months, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to show them why they're wrong. And I started asking the producers of the shows if, as a PA, I could write some of the segments for the shows, and they agreed. So then I was able to start sneakily getting writing positions into these shows, so that a couple months after that, another AP left, and this time it was a yes. Same thing for how I worked my way up to from AP to an actual producer overseeing an entire show. I just kept doing the work of the job that was ahead of me until I was given the title and the responsibility. So when TV Guide was bought by CBS and became Pop TV, they kind of changed the direction of the company. I left the company, or I should say, they kind of shut down our department, so I was asked to leave. And then just on a whim, I saw the Wizard World posting. I submitted my resume. I did not get a call back. I don't even think they looked at it. I said, well, that's not going to work because I want this job. It was for social media, which I had no experience in, but I knew I could figure it out. I'm a smart guy. So I made a video. I made a video of myself, a video resume of why they should hire me, and I made a fool of myself. I dressed up as Batman. I was Bat Nerd, and told them why they should hire Bat Nerd, and then I sent it in, and I just thought that was the dumbest thing I've ever done, but oh well. And 2 days later, I got a call from the CEO of the company, and he said, I showed this to every member of the board. Come in next week. And then I worked there. And when I worked at Wizard World, I did social media, but I created content. We also helped launch Con TV, which turned out to be a little bit different than what we had originally thought, but I got to produce and just make a ton of content. I got to host shows that I had created with celebrity talent. Like I was living the dream, and then the dream ended because things change, situations change. I changed, and it just it wasn't a situation that I could be in anymore. But all throughout that time that I was at Wizard World, I was a fan of Screen Junkies movie fights. I actually only knew it as a podcast. I didn't even know it was a video show. And I would listen to it in my office with my office mate Tucker, and we would listen to movie fights. And my favorite fighters were Hal. Hal would make me laugh so hard in the office, and I loved Dan because you couldn't touch the guy. So I was, after Wizard World, I was kind of thinking, what am I gonna do next? And one of my friends, that Brittany, who used to work at Wizard World, had now made her way over to Screen Junkies, and she was working for them, but she was kind of temporary. She was about to leave, and she called me and said, "Hey, you used to listen to movie fights, right? You're a fan of Screen Junkies. I actually work there now. Do you wanna? I can put in a good word for you." I was like, yeah, please. So I got the call the next day to come in and interview. I don't even think from what I understand, they didn't even interview anyone else. I think Brittany and Ken Knapsack vouched for me, and the rest is history. I started working quietly behind the scenes at Screen Junkies, and then, just through opportunities that were handed, or, some of them were handed to me and some of them I took, but there were definitely opportunities that I was able to kind of become one of the screen junkies, which I'm very grateful for. So that is the most long-winded answer I could possibly say of how did you break into this industry. But the whole point of that long story is that everything that happened had to happen the way it did for me to be where I am now. I don't think that there's like one certain thing that you do or have to do or shouldn't do. Um, I definitely think that, you know, I always say like you have to be okay with starting at the bottom, and you have to just believe in yourself enough to know that in the end, the cream rises to the top, and just work your ass off, man. Work your ass off. Be nice to everybody because you never know who you're going to run into again in your life and who's going to help you out later in life. I hadn't talked to Brittany in months after Wizard World because I just didn't want anything to do with Wizard World. And because she, we just had such a great bond and she was, we were such great friends at Wizard World and helped each other out there, she helped me out again, which I'm eternally grateful for. So, networking is everything, working hard is everything. And yeah, the rest will take care of itself. And then your last question, Mark, was he said, "I don't know you too well, but I've been following Screen Junkies for about 2 years, and I feel like in the past 6 months I've gotten to know you more. If you had one thing you wanted people to know about you, what is it?" I guess what I want people to know about me is I think, and I definitely don't think I'm alone in this. I think this is kind of the curse of social media, but I think what I want people to know about me is, they see the life that I have or the things that I do on social media, and uh, and they think that I have it all figured out, and I don't. Um, I was a fan of everything that I love: Batman, Star Wars, Star Trek, all this nerdy genre stuff. I was a fan that just didn't. Maybe I was just too dumb to know that there was a chance that I couldn't work in this space. Um, I guess I don't really know what I'm trying to say other than like I guess I'd want people to know that like I don't take all of this for granted. Um, as I kind of look around, where my surroundings, and I look at, just the fact that anyone wants to know me. The fact that you've been following for Screen Junkies for 2 years and you feel like you've gotten to know me in the past 6 months, like that's not lost on me. That means a lot to me. It's there's this feeling of like putting things out in the world on social media, like you're trying to get validation. There's the like, oh, they're just doing it to get validation. It's like, yeah, and I don't necessarily think that that's like an evil thing. Like, I look at the life that I have, and I look at all the fans that do interact with me, and it's like I'm one of you too. I'm also a fan, and I'm very fortunate and grateful that I get to be a fan, and I get to go to work every day and make content that I loved before I even started working here. And no, not every day is perfect. There are days where I get frustrated or, it's not the best thing in the world that day, but I can't imagine doing anything else, and I'm eternally grateful for that. So I guess that's what I want people to know is that no matter what I say or no matter what I do or how I may come off, I'm very aware that the life that I have is very special, and I the last, oh man, 12 years since I've moved down here to Southern California. I don't know if I could have pictured anything better. And I still have a lot that I still want to do, including starting this podcast. So yeah, there you go. I think I answered just about every question. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I know this wasn't a normal hot takes episode. I don't have a guest. I'm kind of just I was gonna say free balling. I don't think free balling is the term. I'm spitballing, free willing. I don't know. Actually, now I like free balling. I'm just free balling out here on this episode by myself. Just kind of interacting with you. I hope you kind of learned a little bit more about me, and maybe that helps when you listen to another one of these episodes where I give a quote unquote hot take. Maybe you can understand a little bit better where I'm coming from. And yeah, I would love to know if you guys even like this format, this kind of just bonus, just me talking to you. If you would want more episodes like this, because this is actually therapeutic in a strange kind of way. I also had mentioned a while back that I wrote this kind of essay, which is more just like a regurgitation of thoughts, word vomit on a Google Doc about Batman Returns. And a lot of you wanted me to post that online, but now I'm thinking maybe I kind of just turn that into a bonus episode of this podcast where I really take a deep dive into the themes of Batman Returns. So if that's something you're interested in, or if you really like this episode, let me know. And also let me know what you think of this mic, because I really like it, but I don't know how the sound's going to be. So thank you so much for listening. As always, please rate, review, subscribe. I know it takes a little bit of your time, but when you rate and review, it helps when people type in my name or type in this show to pop up in their search feeds a little bit easier. So Apple thinks that my podcast is more important than it actually is. Thank you so much for listening. New episode coming on Tuesday. There'll be no interruption. It's just a special little bonus. And thank you for listening. Have a great week.